I never thought the house I bought with my own money would become the battleground where my mother chose my golden child brother over me. Standing in my driveway at midnight, suitcase in hand, I watched through the windows as Marcus unpacked his belongings in my living room while Mom made him coffee in my kitchen. The betrayal cut deeper than any family fight we had ever had before. What happened next would expose decades of lies and destroy everything I thought I knew about my family forever. Hey everyone, before we dive into this wild family drama that literally changed my entire life, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from tonight. If stories about family betrayal and ultimate justice get your blood pumping like they do mine, smash that like button and hit subscribe because trust me, you are going to want to follow this journey all the way to the shocking end. Now, let me tell you how my own mother kicked me out of the house I purchased so my spoiled brother could move in. My name is Seraphina, and this nightmare began 3 months ago when Marcus called Mom crying about his latest financial disaster. At 28, my younger brother had never held a job longer than 6 months, burned through 2 business ventures that Dad funded, and somehow convinced our parents that his failures were always someone else's fault. Meanwhile, I had been working since 16, put myself through college, and at 31 had finally saved enough to buy my dream home in Sacramento. The house was everything I had worked for. A beautiful craftsman-style home with original hardwood floors, a wraparound porch, and enough space for the art studio I had always wanted. I signed the papers in March, and by April I was hosting Sunday dinners for the family, proud to finally have a place to call my own after years of cramped apartments and financial struggle. That was before Marcus lost his apartment. According to Mom, Marcus had been scammed by his roommate who disappeared with 3 months' rent money. The story had holes big enough to drive a truck through, but Mom was already in full protective mode before I could ask questions. She called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice tight with worry that I recognized from childhood whenever Marcus got into trouble. Seraphina, honey, Marcus needs somewhere to stay, just temporarily while he gets back on his feet. She said, not really asking. You have all that extra space now, and family helps family. I should have said no immediately. Every instinct screamed that this was a terrible idea. Marcus had never respected boundaries, never contributed fairly to shared expenses, and had a talent for making other people's problems into family emergencies. But the guilt was immediate and crushing. Mom had that special way of making her requests sound like moral tests that good daughters passed and selfish ones failed. Just for a few weeks, I agreed, already regretting the words. He can stay in the guest room, but he needs to contribute to utilities and groceries. Marcus moved in the following Saturday with Mom help carrying garbage bags of clothes and a gaming setup that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He had no job, no savings, and no apparent plan beyond playing video games in my guest room while eating my food and using my Wi-Fi. When I brought up his contribution to household expenses, he looked genuinely confused. I thought family did not charge family rent, he said, echoing Mom's exact words from our childhood whenever she wanted us to share something of mine with him. The weeks stretched into months. Marcus made no effort to find work despite my offers to help with his resume or job applications. He treated my home like a hotel, leaving dishes in the sink, never cleaning up after himself, and having loud gaming sessions until 3 in the morning. When I approached Mom about setting boundaries, she accused me of being jealous that Marcus was finally getting the support he needed. He just needs time to heal from this betrayal, Mom insisted during one of our increasingly tense phone calls. You have always been the responsible one, Seraphina. Sometimes that means carrying a little extra weight for family. The breaking point came when I discovered Marcus had been intercepting my mail. I found a stack of my financial statements hidden in his room while looking for my missing credit card. Bank statements, investment account summaries, property tax documents, everything that detailed exactly how much money I had and how much my house was worth. When I confronted him, he claimed he was trying to understand my finances to figure out fair rent payment. But that explanation crumbled when I found his search history on my computer. Marcus had been researching property law, specifically looking up information about tenant rights adverse possession and how long someone had to live in a property before gaining legal claim to it. He had also been messaging someone about getting my house appraised and discussing something called family property redistribution. My hands shook as I scrolled through his browser history. This was not about temporary housing or family support. This was a calculated attempt to steal my home. Marcus had been planning this from the moment Mom called me with his sob story about being scammed. The roommate drama was probably fabricated entirely, just another manipulation to get his foot in my door. I printed everything immediately, my printer working overtime as I documented months of evidence. His searches, the hidden mail screenshots of his conversations with unknown contacts about my property. The betrayal felt like a physical weight in my chest, making it hard to breathe. My own brother had been plotting to steal the home I had worked years to afford. When I called Mom that evening, demanding she come over to discuss Marcus' behavior, I expected support. I expected her to be as outraged as I was about his deception and invasion of privacy. Instead, she arrived with Marcus in tow and immediately went on the defensive. "You are being paranoid and selfish," Mom declared before I could even show her the evidence. "Marcus explained everything to me. He was trying to be helpful by organizing your mail, and you are twisting it into something sinister because you cannot stand seeing your brother get ahead in life." "Mom, look at these search results," I said, pulling up his browser history on my laptop. "He has been researching how to legally claim ownership of my house." She barely glanced at the screen. "That is just curiosity. Marcus has always been interested in learning new things." "You are being dramatic because you have never liked sharing anything with your brother." The gaslighting was immediate and complete. Every piece of evidence I presented was dismissed as misunderstanding or jealousy. According to Mom, I was the problem for not trusting Marcus' good intentions. When I insisted that he had to leave my house immediately, she delivered the ultimatum that changed everything. "If you kick Marcus out when he has nowhere else to go, you are choosing your precious house over your family," Mom said, her voice cold and final. "And if that is the choice you make, then maybe you are not the daughter I raised. Maybe Marcus deserves to live here more than you do." The words hit like a slap. After everything I had accomplished, all the years of being the responsible one who never asked for help, Mom was threatening to disown me for protecting my own home from my brother theft attempt. The golden child could do no wrong even when caught red-handed planning to steal from his sister. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to Marcus laugh with his online gaming friends in the room next to mine. He was celebrating something, probably confident that Mom's ultimatum would force me to back down like it had so many times before. But this time felt different. This time I was not going to let family loyalty be used as a weapon against me. I spent the next morning documenting everything while Marcus slept until noon, and Mom ran errands, blissfully unaware that I was building a case against them. My first call was to my college friend Diana, who had become a real estate attorney. When I explained the situation, her response was immediate and alarming. "Seraphina, this is serious." Diana said, her professional tone cutting through my emotional fog. "What Marcus is doing could constitute attempted fraud. The fact that he is intercepting your mail is a federal offense. And if he is researching adverse possession while living in your home without paying rent, that suggests premeditation. You need to document everything and get him out immediately." Diana walked me through the legal steps I needed to take. First, I needed to serve Marcus with formal eviction papers even though he was family and had never paid rent. Second, I should file a police report about the mail tampering. Third, I needed to secure all my financial documents and considered changing the locks if he had made copies of my keys. The longer he stays, the stronger his potential claim becomes, Diana warned. Some states have laws about established residency that could complicate things. You need to act fast. While I was on the phone with Diana, Marcus emerged from his room looking smug and refreshed. He made himself breakfast in my kitchen using my groceries and settled in front of my television like he owned the place. The casual entitlement in his movements made my skin crawl. This was not temporary housing for him anymore. This was his new, permanent situation, and he expected me to accept it. I waited until Mom returned from her errands before confronting them both together. I had printed out everything, organized it in a folder, and prepared my speech. This time, I would not let them gaslight me into backing down. I need you both to sit down. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We are going to discuss Marcus moving out today. Mom immediately bristled. Seraphina, we already talked about this. Marcus needs our support right now, and you are being unreasonably selfish. No, Mom. You are going to listen to me this time, I said, opening the folder. Marcus has been systematically violating my privacy and researching ways to steal my house. This is not about family support. This is about theft. I laid out the evidence piece by piece. The intercepted mail arranged by date, screenshots of his internet searches about adverse possession and tenant rights, his conversations about getting my house appraised. The timeline showed clear premeditation, a calculated plan that had been in motion long before his supposed roommate emergency. Marcus tried to interrupt with explanations and excuses, but I kept going. You researched how long you needed to live here to claim ownership rights. You hid my financial documents. You lied about your roommate situation. This was never about temporary help. This was always about taking my house. For the first time, Mom looked uncertain. She picked up the printed search results, her eyes scanning the dates and terms. I watched her face change as the evidence mounted, the realization creeping in that her golden child had been deceiving all of us. Marcus, she said quietly, what is this about adverse possession? Marcus finally dropped the innocent act. His expression shifted to something calculating and cold that I had never seen before. Fine, you want the truth. Seraphina does not deserve this house. She bought it to show off, to prove she is better than the rest of us. I could actually use this space for something meaningful, maybe start a business or build something important. You were planning to steal my house, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Steal is a strong word, Marcus replied with a shrug. I was researching my options. You make good money, you could buy another place. This house is too big for one person anyway, and you are always traveling for work. It makes more sense for me to live here. The casual way he dismissed my rights to my own property was breathtaking. He genuinely believed he was entitled to take what I had worked for because he wanted it more, or because he could supposedly use it better. Years of being the favorite had convinced him that the world owed him whatever he desired. Mom was staring at Marcus like she was seeing him for the first time. You were actually planning to take her house, Marcus. She worked for years to buy this place. And she can work for years to buy another one. Marcus snapped his mask completely off now. She has always been good at working. Some of us have bigger dreams that need support. The entitlement was staggering, but it was also exactly the confession I needed. I had been secretly recording our conversation on my phone, and Marcus had just admitted on tape that he was planning to take my house because he felt entitled to it. Get out, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Both of you get out of my house right now. Mom looked stricken. Seraphina, honey, let us talk about this. We can work something out that is fair for everyone. No, we cannot, I replied. Marcus just admitted he was planning to steal my house, and you have been helping him by pressuring me to let him stay. I want both of you gone today." Marcus laughed, actually laughed like I had told a joke. "You cannot kick me out, Sarah. I live here now. I have been getting mail here for months. I have established residency. Mom will back me up that this is my home too." The confidence in his voice chilled me. He had researched this thoroughly and believed he had legal protection, but I had done my research too, and Diana had prepared me for exactly this response. "Actually, Marcus, I said, pulling out the eviction papers Diana had helped me prepare. "These are formal eviction papers. You have 30 days to vacate, and if you refuse, I will have you forcibly removed by the sheriff. And these," I added, pulling out a second set of papers, "are the police reports I am filing today for mail tampering and attempted fraud." The smugness evaporated from Marcus' face. He had expected me to cave under family pressure like I always had before. He had counted on Mom's support and my own guilt to protect him from consequences. The legal papers in my hands proved that this time was different. "You would actually call the police on your own brother?" Mom asked, her voice barely a whisper. "My brother was planning to steal my house," I replied. "What did you think I would do? Let him have it?" Marcus tried one last manipulation. "Mom, tell her she cannot do this to family. Tell her she is being cruel and vindictive." But Mom was staring at the evidence, finally seeing the scope of Marcus' deception. The golden child had been lying to everyone, including her, and the realization was breaking something fundamental in her worldview. "I think," Mom said slowly, "we all need some time to think about this." "I do not need time to think, Oi," I said firmly. "I need both of you out of my house today." What happened next turned my family drama into a full-blown war that would expose secrets I never saw coming. After I served Marcus with eviction papers and Mom left looking shell-shocked, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. The real battle was just beginning, and it would require allies I never expected to find. Marcus refused to leave. Despite the legal eviction notice, he barricaded himself in the guest room and declared he was not going anywhere. When I changed the locks the next morning, I discovered he had already made copies of my keys. He let himself back in while I was at work, acting like nothing had happened. "You cannot keep me out of my own home," he told me when I found him cooking dinner in my kitchen that evening. "I have rights now, and you are going to learn what they are." That night, I called my older sister Rebecca, who lived 3 states away in Colorado. Becca and I had grown apart over the years, partly because she had moved away for college and never came back, and partly because she had always clashed with Mom about her favoritism toward Marcus. I hoped distance had given her perspective on our family dynamics. "Sarah, I have been waiting for this call for 10 years. Rebecca said when I finished explaining the situation. "Marcus has been pulling this entitled behavior since high school, and Mom has been enabling it every step of the way. The fact that he is trying to steal your house does not surprise me at all." Rebecca revealed family history I had been too young to understand at the time. Apparently, Marcus had convinced our parents to co-sign student loans for a degree. He never finished, leaving them with $20,000 in debt. When Rebecca refused to lend him money for his first failed business venture, Mom had accused her of being selfish and unsupportive, leading to years of strained relationships. "I moved to Colorado to get away from the toxic dynamic," Rebecca admitted. "Mom has always treated Marcus like he could do no wrong, and the rest of us like we exist to serve his needs. I am proud of you for finally standing up to it." Rebecca offered to fly out and help me deal with the situation, but she also gave me something more valuable: contact information for our Uncle David, Dad's younger brother who had cut ties with our family years ago after a mysterious falling out. According to Rebecca, Uncle David had tried to warn our parents about Marcus' behavior when he was still a teenager, but Mom had accused David of being jealous and cruel. David saw through Marcus years before any of us did, Rebecca explained. If you are going to fight this, you need to know what David knows about our family financial situation. There are things Mom and Dad never told us. I called Uncle David that same evening, my hands shaking as I dialed the number Rebecca had given me. David answered on the second ring, and when I explained who I was and why I was calling, his response floored me. Seraphina, I have been hoping one of you kids would reach out eventually. David said, his voice heavy with years of suppressed frustration. Your parents have been lying to you about money for years, and Marcus has been at the center of it. If he is trying to steal your house, it is probably because he thinks it should have been his inheritance anyway. David revealed that our grandparents had left a substantial inheritance when they died 8 years ago. Money that was supposed to be split between their children and grandchildren. According to the will, each grandchild was supposed to receive $50,000 when they turned 25. I had turned 25 6 years ago. Rebecca had turned 25 9 years ago. Marcus would not turn 25 for another 3 years. Your parents convinced the executor to release Marcus' portion early, claiming it was for education expenses, David explained. But they also took control of your and Rebecca portions, claiming they would invest it wisely and give it to you when you were ready. I tried to fight it, but the executor was a family friend who trusted your parents' judgment. My mind reeled as I processed this information. Mom and Dad had stolen my inheritance and given it to Marcus, who had blown it on failed businesses and expensive toys. The $50,000 I should have received could have helped me buy my house years earlier, could have changed my entire financial trajectory. There is more, David continued. Marcus convinced your parents to take out a second mortgage on their house last year to fund his latest business idea. They are drowning in debt, and I suspect they see your house as a way to solve their financial problems. If Marcus can establish legal residency and claim ownership rights, they could force a sale and split the proceeds. The scope of the conspiracy was breathtaking. This was not just Marcus acting alone in his entitled delusions. This was a family-wide financial scheme that had been in motion for years with me as the unwitting target. My own parents had been positioning me as their retirement plan while funding Marcus' endless failures with money that should have been mine. David agreed to help me fight back. As a former banker, he had connections in the legal and financial world that could help me trace the missing inheritance money and prove the pattern of financial manipulation. He also had documentation from his attempts to challenge the early release of Marcus' inheritance evidence that could support fraud charges. But David also warned me about what we were up against. Your parents have been lying and manipulating for so long that they probably believe their own stories now, he said. When cornered, they will get desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things. You need to protect yourself legally and financially. I followed David's advice and opened new bank accounts that my family could not access. I moved all my investments to a different firm and changed all my passwords. I installed security cameras around my house and started documenting every interaction with Marcus and Mom. I was building a fortress around my life, preparing for a siege I had never imagined I would need. The next escalation came from an unexpected direction. Dad, who had been conspicuously absent from the initial confrontation, finally called me 3 days after I had served Marcus with eviction papers. His approach was different from Mom emotional manipulation, more calculating and businesslike. Seraphina, we need to have a mature conversation about this situation with Marcus, Dad said in his reasonable voice that I remembered from childhood when he was about to ask me to sacrifice something for family harmony. I understand you are upset, but kicking your brother onto the street is not the solution. We need to find a compromise that works for everyone. Dad's proposal was stunning in its audacity. He suggested that I deed half ownership of my house to Marcus as a gesture of family unity, allowing both of us to live there while we figured out a long-term arrangement. In exchange, Marcus would pay half the mortgage and utilities, making the house more affordable for both of us. It is really a win-win situation, Dad explained, as if he were offering me a generous business deal. You get help with expenses, Marcus gets stable housing, and the family stays together. Your grandmother always wanted us to take care of each other. The manipulation was so smooth and practiced that I almost found myself considering it for a moment before reality reasserted itself. Dad was asking me to give away half of my house, half of my life savings, half of my financial security to the brother who had been planning to steal it all anyway, and he was framing it as family loyalty and my grandmother wishes. Dad Marcus was researching how to steal my entire house, I said, my voice carefully controlled. Why would I voluntarily give him half of it? You are being dramatic, sweetheart, Dad replied, using the patronizing tone that had always made me feel small and unreasonable. Marcus made some mistakes, but his heart was in the right place. He just wants security and family connection. Is your house really more important than your brother's well-being? The gaslighting was expert-level designed to make me question my own perceptions and priorities. But this time I had allies and evidence. This time I was not facing the family pressure campaign alone. Actually, Dad, I think Marcus' well-being would be better served by learning to support himself instead of scheming to steal from his sister, I replied. And I think our conversation is over. When I hung up, my hands were shaking with adrenaline. I had just refused a direct request from my father, something I had never done in my adult life. But I also felt something I had not experienced in family conflicts before I felt powerful. Just when I thought I'd had the support I needed to win this battle, everything fell apart in the most devastating way possible. The betrayal came from someone I trusted completely, and it nearly destroyed my case before I could present it. Rebecca had flown out from Colorado as promised, arriving on a Thursday morning with a suitcase full of determination and years of stored-up resentment toward our family dynamics. Having my sister physically present felt like finally having someone in my corner who understood the scope of what we were fighting. She helped me organize all the evidence David had sent about the missing inheritance, and together we built a timeline that showed years of financial manipulation. This is bigger than just Marcus trying to steal your house, Rebecca said as we spread documents across my dining room table. This is systematic fraud that has been going on since Grandma and Grandpa died. Mom and Dad have been using all of us as their personal bank accounts. Rebecca had brought her own evidence of the family financial abuse. Years of guilt-driven loans that were never repaid, emergency requests that turned out to fund Marcus' lifestyle, and pressure to contribute to family expenses, while Marcus contributed nothing. Together, our documentation painted a clear picture of a family system designed to extract money from the responsible children to support the golden child. We spent the weekend preparing our case with Rebecca serving as both emotional support and strategic advisor. She had an MBA and years of corporate experience that helped her see the business side of what our parents had been doing. Having her validation made me feel less crazy, less like the selfish daughter Mom had always accused me of being. But on Monday morning, everything changed. I woke up to find Rebecca in my kitchen having coffee with Mom, their voices low and intense in conversation. When they saw me, they both went quiet in a way that immediately set off alarm bells. Rebecca looked uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes, while Mom watched me with an expression I could not read. "Morning, Sarah," Rebecca said carefully. "Mom came by early to talk. We have been discussing some possible solutions to this whole situation." The word solutions sent ice through my veins. In our family, solutions always meant someone was about to be asked to sacrifice for the greater good, and that someone was usually me. "What kind of solutions?" I asked, pouring myself coffee with hands that were starting to shake. Mom stepped forward with the smile she used when she was about to ask for something big. "Rebecca has helped me understand your perspective better, honey. I can see why you feel hurt and betrayed. but she has also helped me see a path forward that could heal our family and solve everyone's problems. Rebecca finally met my eyes, and what I saw there made my stomach drop. She looked guilty and apologetic, the expression of someone who was about to deliver bad news they believed was for my own good. Sarah, I think Mom has a point about finding a compromise, Rebecca said slowly. Fighting this legally is going to tear the family apart permanently, and honestly, the inheritance money is gone. David confirmed that there is no way to recover it. The business loans are legitimate, even if we do not like how the money was used. I stared at my sister, the woman who had flown across the country to help me fight this battle, now sitting in my kitchen advocating for surrender. Rebecca, what are you saying? I am saying maybe we should consider Dad's proposal about shared ownership. Rebecca continued, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke. You would still live in the house, but Marcus would have stability too. It could actually be a good financial arrangement for you having help with the mortgage. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. My own sister, who had spent years criticizing our family dynamics, was now proposing that I voluntarily give away half of my house to the brother who had tried to steal it. She was using the same arguments Dad had used, wrapped in concern for family unity and my own financial benefit. They got to you, I said quietly, the realization settling like lead in my stomach. They actually got to you. Rebecca looked genuinely confused. Nobody got to me, Sarah. I am trying to be practical. Mom explained how much debt they are in because of helping Marcus and how scared they are about losing their house. We are family. We have to find a way to help each other. There it was. The same emotional manipulation that had controlled our family for decades now deployed against the sister I had counted on to see through it. Mom had spent one morning alone with Rebecca, sharing carefully selected information about family finances and playing on Rebecca's guilt about being the daughter who moved away and never helped. Did she tell you that the debt is from them stealing my inheritance? I asked. Did she mention that Marcus has been planning this house theft for months? She explained that there were some misunderstandings about the inheritance. Rebecca replied, using careful language that told me Mom had already reframed the entire narrative. And Marcus' behavior with your mail was wrong, but it might have been more curiosity than actual theft planning. I could see how it had happened. Rebecca had been away from the family drama for years, had built her own life without daily exposure to the manipulation. A few hours of mom expert gaslighting combined with genuine concern about family relationships and carefully presented financial information had been enough to flip her loyalty. Mom was watching this conversation with satisfaction, knowing she had successfully turned my strongest ally against me. This was her specialty, finding the emotional leverage that could make people act against their own interests in the name of family harmony. So you think I should give Marcus half of my house? I asked Rebecca directly. I think you should consider it, Rebecca said. Sarah, you make good money. You could afford the mortgage on your own if you had to. Marcus has nothing. Sometimes being the strong one means carrying extra weight so the family can stay together. The words could have come directly from Mom Playbook. My sister was using the same guilt-based arguments that had been used on me my entire life. The ones that painted my financial responsibility as a burden I owed to irresponsible family members. Get out, I said quietly. Sarah, please, Rebecca started. Get out of my house, I repeated louder this time. Both of you, Rebecca. I thought you understood what they were doing to me, but you are just another flying monkey for mom manipulation. I want you both gone. Rebecca looked genuinely hurt. Sarah, I am trying to help you. Fighting this is going to destroy our family. Our family was destroyed years ago, I replied. I just finally see it clearly. After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen, surrounded by all the evidence Rebecca and I had organized together, feeling more isolated than I had ever felt in my life. My strongest ally had been turned against me in a single conversation. The sister I thought understood me had revealed herself to be just as susceptible to mom manipulation as everyone else. But in the devastation, something crystallized. I was going to fight this alone if I had to, and I was going to win. The betrayal by Rebecca left me feeling more alone than ever, but it also cleared my mind in a way that nothing else could have. With my family fully aligned against me, I stopped trying to preserve relationships and focused entirely on protecting myself. That shift in perspective led me to discover evidence that changed everything and brought me an ally I never expected. After Rebecca left with Mom, I spent hours on the phone with Uncle David, who was furious when I told him about the morning ambush in my kitchen. David had suspected that Mom would try to manipulate Rebecca, but he had underestimated how quickly and completely she could flip someone's perspective. "Your mother has always been a master manipulator," David said, his voice tight with old anger. "She convinced my own parents to change their will in Marcus' favor by claiming he needed extra help. She made them believe they were being good grandparents instead of enablers." David had more information that he had been holding back, waiting to see if I was serious about fighting this battle. Now that my entire family had shown their true colors, he was ready to share everything. "I hired a private investigator last year to track what happened to the family money," David revealed. "I needed to know if there was any way to recover what was stolen from you kids. What I found was worse than I imagined." The investigator had uncovered a pattern of financial fraud that went back years. Mom and Dad had not just taken our inheritance money. They had been systematically draining every family financial resource to fund Marcus' lifestyle and failed businesses. They had borrowed against their own retirement accounts, taken out credit cards in Rebecca's name when she was in college, and even filed false insurance claims to generate cash for Marcus Ventures. "The insurance fraud is what we can prove," David explained. "They claimed water damage to their basement 3 years ago and collected $15,000 in repairs that were never done. The investigator has photos showing the basement was never damaged and contractors who were paid to provide fake estimates. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. The private investigator had interviewed Marcus' ex-roommate, the one who had supposedly scammed him and left him homeless. It turned out that Marcus had never lived with this person at all. The entire roommate story was fabricated to create justification for him moving into my house. "Marcus has been planning to steal your house since before you even bought it," David said. "He convinced your parents to help him by claiming you were being selfish keeping such a large house to yourself. They have been working on this scheme for months." Armed with this new evidence, I called Diana to update her on the situation and get legal advice about the insurance fraud and identity theft. Her response was immediate and decisive. "Seraphina, this is a federal case now," Diana said. "Insurance fraud, mail tampering, conspiracy to commit theft. You need to take this to the FBI, not just local police, and you need to do it before your family realizes how much evidence you have." But Diana also introduced me to someone who would become my most important ally in this fight, her colleague James Mitchell, a federal prosecutor who specialized in family fraud cases. James agreed to meet with me that same afternoon, and what he told me changed my entire approach to the situation. "Cases like this are more common than people think," James explained as we sat in his downtown office, my boxes of evidence spread across his conference table. "Family members who use emotional manipulation to commit financial crimes often escalate when their initial plans are threatened. Your brother attempted to steal your house was probably just the beginning." James reviewed all the evidence with the eye of someone who had prosecuted hundreds of similar cases. He immediately spotted patterns I had missed, connections between seemingly unrelated financial transactions that painted a picture of long-term fraud. "Your parents have been running a family-based Ponzi scheme," James said his tone matter-of-fact despite the devastating nature of his words. They steal from one child to pay the expenses of another, always promising that the responsible children will be paid back eventually. When Rebecca refused to keep lending money, they moved on to targeting your assets. But James also gave me hope. The evidence we had gathered was strong enough to pursue criminal charges, and the federal nature of the mail fraud meant that state residency laws would not protect Marcus from prosecution. More importantly, any assets purchased with stolen money could be recovered through asset forfeiture laws. If we can prove that Marcus used your inheritance money to fund his lifestyle while planning to steal your house, we can not only get him evicted but also recover financial damages, James explained. The court can order restitution that could include both the stolen inheritance and compensation for your legal expenses. James agreed to take my case pro bono partly because Diana was his colleague and partly because he believed the evidence was strong enough to secure convictions that would serve as precedent for similar family fraud cases. Having a federal prosecutor on my side changed everything about my position in this fight. But the most unexpected support came from someone I had never met before. While I was working with James to prepare the federal complaint, I received a call from Marcus' ex-girlfriend, a woman named Ashley who had dated my brother 2 years earlier. "I saw your name in some legal documents Marcus was bragging about," Ashley explained when she called. He was showing them to people at a bar, claiming he was about to own a house in Sacramento. I knew it had to be some kind of scam because Marcus has never owned anything legitimate in his life. Ashley had dated Marcus for 8 months and had front-row seats to his pattern of manipulation and fraud. She had evidence of him bragging about plans to manipulate family members for money text messages where he described me as too soft to fight back, and voice recordings of him explaining his house theft scheme to friends. "Marcus is not just entitled," Ashley said. "He is genuinely sociopathic. He told me once that he thought successful people deserved to have their money taken by people who could use it better. He specifically targeted you because you work hard and save money which he saw as hoarding that needed to be corrected." Ashley agreed to provide testimony and evidence for the federal case. She also warned me about what to expect as the legal pressure increased. "When Marcus feels cornered, he gets dangerous," Ashley said. "He started stalking me after I broke up with him, showing up at my work and threatening to ruin my reputation if I told anyone about his schemes. You need to be careful, especially if you are living alone in that house with him." With James as my prosecutor and Ashley as a witness to Marcus' criminal mindset, I finally had the team I needed to fight back effectively. The betrayal by my family had forced me to build a chosen family of allies who were committed to justice rather than enabling dysfunction. But as I prepared to file federal charges against my own family members, I also prepared for the final battle. Marcus and my parents would not go down quietly, and I needed to be ready for whatever desperate measures they might attempt when they realized their scheme was collapsing around them. The final confrontation came sooner than I expected, and it was more dramatic than anything I could have imagined. When federal agents showed up at my door on a Tuesday morning with arrest warrants, the house of lies my family had built came crashing down in spectacular fashion. Marcus was still living in my guest room despite the eviction notice when FBI agent Sarah Chin rang my doorbell at 7 in the morning. Behind her were 2 other agents and a local sheriff deputy, all there to execute arrest warrants for Marcus' mom and dad on charges of mail fraud, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. "We need Marcus Thompson to come to the door," Agent Chin said professionally. "We have a warrant for his arrest." I called upstairs for Marcus, my voice surprisingly steady given that I was watching my family legal destruction unfold in my front yard. Marcus came downstairs in his pajamas, probably expecting another argument about cleaning up after himself. Instead, he found federal agents waiting to arrest him. The look on Marcus' face when Agent Chin read him his rights was something I will never forget. For the first time in his life, Marcus realized that his actions had consequences that Mom could not fix and Dad could not negotiate away. The golden child was finally facing justice, and no amount of charm or manipulation could save him. "This is insane," Marcus said as they handcuffed him. "Seraphina, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. We are family." "Actually, Marcus, this is exactly what happens when you try to steal someone's house and commit federal crimes in the process," I replied, my voice calm despite the surreal nature of watching my brother get arrested in my living room. Mom and Dad were arrested at their house within the hour. The charges included not only the insurance fraud David had uncovered, but also identity theft for using Rebecca information to open credit cards, mail fraud for Marcus, interception of my documents, and conspiracy charges for their coordinated attempt to steal my property. But the arrests were just the beginning of their downfall. The federal investigation had uncovered financial crimes going back years, including tax evasion, fraudulent business loan applications, and embezzlement from a charity where Mom had volunteered as treasurer. What started as a scheme to steal my house had exposed decades of criminal behavior. Rebecca called me from Colorado after seeing the arrest reports in the news. Her voice was small and shaken when she spoke. "Sarah, I had no idea it was this bad," she said, crying. "Mom made it sound like money troubles and family misunderstandings. I never imagined they were actual criminals." "They are very good at making their victims feel like partners," I replied, surprised by how little anger I felt toward my sister now. "Mom spent 30 years perfecting her manipulation techniques on all of us." Rebecca and I had a long conversation about the family dynamics we had both survived and how Mom emotional abuse had trained us to sacrifice our own interests for family harmony. The federal prosecutor James had referred Rebecca to a therapist who specialized in family fraud victims, and she was beginning to understand how thoroughly we had all been manipulated. "I am so sorry I turned against you," Rebecca said. "I should have trusted you instead of falling for Mom guilt trip." "You were doing what you thought would keep the family together," I replied. "It took me 31 years to realize that our family was never actually together in any healthy way." The legal proceedings moved quickly once the arrests were made. With overwhelming evidence and multiple federal charges, Mom, Dad, and Marcus lawyers advised them to take plea deals rather than risk decades in prison. Marcus received 2 years in federal prison while Mom and Dad got 18 months each, plus restitution orders. The restitution was more than I had hoped for. The court ordered them to repay not only my stolen inheritance with interest, but also damages for legal expenses, emotional distress, and the cost of securing my property during their attempted theft. The total amount was enough to pay off my mortgage completely, leaving me debt-free and financially secure. But the most satisfying justice came from unexpected consequences I had not anticipated. Marcus' criminal record made him ineligible for most jobs and professional licenses, effectively destroying his prospects for the kind of easy success he had always expected. Mom and Dad lost their house due to the legal expenses and restitution payments, and their retirement savings were seized to pay victims of their various fraud schemes. The golden child system that had defined our family for 30 years was permanently destroyed, and the people who had benefited from it were facing the natural consequences of their choices for the first time in their lives. 6 months after the arrests, I was living a completely different life. My house was truly mine, paid off and secure from any family schemes. I had converted Marcus' former room into the art studio I had always wanted, finally claiming space for my own dreams instead of sacrificing them for family obligations. Uncle David became a regular presence in my life, visiting monthly and sharing family stories that helped me understand the generational patterns I had broken. Diana and James remained close friends, and Ashley and I developed an unexpected friendship based on our shared experience of surviving Marcus manipulation. Most importantly, I learned the difference between biological family and chosen family. The people who supported me through this crisis, who believed in justice over family loyalty, who chose honesty over comfort, these were my real family. Rebecca, after months of therapy and genuine effort to understand her role in the family dysfunction, earned her way back into my trust and became the sister I had always needed. I started a blog about family financial abuse, sharing my story to help other victims recognize the warning signs and find resources for legal protection. The response was overwhelming, with hundreds of people sharing their own stories of family members who used emotional manipulation to commit financial crimes. The experience taught me that setting boundaries with family is not cruel or selfish. It is necessary for survival. That justice is possible, even when it means holding loved ones accountable for terrible choices, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their destructive behavior and let them face the consequences of their actions. Looking back now, I realize that my family attempts to steal my house were actually a gift. They forced me to see the truth about relationships built on manipulation and obligation rather than genuine love and respect. They taught me to value people who celebrate my success instead of trying to diminish it. And they showed me that I am strong enough to stand alone when necessary and wise enough to build a chosen family based on mutual support and honesty. As I sit in my art studio in my paid-off house, surrounded by paintings that reflect my own dreams instead of family expectations, I am grateful for every difficult choice that brought me here. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most teach us the most valuable lessons about who we really are and what we deserve from the people we call family. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting yourself from people who claimed to love you? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below about times when setting boundaries led to discovering who really has your back. And if this story of family justice and finding chosen family resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming toxic family dynamics and finding your own path to happiness. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that it is okay to protect yourself from people who take advantage of family connections, and remember that the family you choose can be more loyal and loving than the one you were born into. Thank you for being part of this community where we support each other through the hardest family decisions, and I wish you the courage to build the life and relationships you truly deserve, surrounded by people who celebrate your success instead of trying to steal it.